Hi everybody, this is Maya Zahira with Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and I'd like to welcome you to this Facebook Live that is taking place in our Psychic Protection Sanctuary free Facebook group. It's a support group. I want to give a shout out to all of you who are watching the replay, because you're probably the only ones that are seeing the very beginning here. So you might be watching the replay on my YouTube channel or elsewhere. So shout out to you, gratitude to you. And I want to just, right before we start our topic, which is about secondary psychic attack, what exactly that is, I want to just really quick take a moment to talk about exactly what we're doing here, especially for the benefit of those of you who are watching the replay later. So we are doing this in Facebook. This is a Facebook Live, and the goal of this video is to build relationships. So we're going to be sharing. This is a casual atmosphere, and you know, on purpose, I don't create edited, slick, shiny videos. This is just about creating relationship and going over some important content in a relaxed atmosphere. So I know some of you on YouTube, that like freaks you out, but that's what we do here in Facebook. And I actually donate several hours a month to creating free content. And there's just not enough time for editing. So I figure it's more important to put more, the more information I can put out there, the better, rather than spending 5 hours for every 1 hour editing. So hopefully you guys can adapt. And if you are a troll, then happy trails. See you later. Go find a different channel, because we've had a lot of trolls on my channel lately. So, you know, if it's not the right fit for you, move along, and we're going to have a relaxed, casual time on our video here. And so, you know, this just goes to show you guys that when you are your authentic self, whatever that may be, it's going to repel the people who are not the right fit, and then the people who do resonate with authenticity and realness, which is what I'm doing right here, are going to be attracted to you. So our topic for today is secondary psychic attack. Welcome everybody. We do have several people on the Facebook Live that are joining, so hi. As always, go ahead and share where you're joining from. I do hope to have this particular topic today be a little more interactive than some of our others. And so that means I want you to get your finger ready. If you're on your phone, I want you to get your finger ready to type, because I want you to share some stories. And if you're on your computer, then get ready to type on there. This topic will be better and more informative for everybody the more sharing that we do. And really, your story is valuable. Your story is important. And don't feel like your story doesn't matter. So when I go into defining what a secondary psychic attack is, you know, it's very helpful for people to hear other people's stories, right? That helps them to understand that they're not alone if they've gone through a similar situation. So let's say hi to everybody. We have a lot of people joining. I have a lot of notes today. I know I'm going to be staring at them because we have a lot to cover. So let me go back and say hi to everybody. I'll shout out to everybody who's made a comment. That's your positive feedback for making a comment. Hamad says, hello, Maya. And Robert says, hi, Maya. Hey, you guys, let me know where you're joining from. April, hello from McPherson, Kansas. Mickey says, hi. Patricia, hi, Maya from Tucson, Arizona. That's right. And Tony from Tucson. Awesome. I'm in Tucson right now. And I was living in Kansas City, so a lot of you are joining from Kansas City. And in the past several months, there have been a lot of people globally who've been connecting with all this information, and I think that's really, really exciting. So before I go into our lesson for today, I want to invite you to get a glass of water, cup of tea, pen and pencil, writing device, whatever, and a notebook, and get ready to take notes, because I think you're gonna get some ideas here, and not only taking notes, but maybe jotting down kind of like a journal, some thoughts that come to you about situations that you've gone through. I think this is going to be, I think we're going to have some aha moments with this topic of secondary psychic attack. Robert is joining us from Vancouver, Washington. So before we jump into our topic, a couple of quick announcements. If you are in need of support, or you would like more information and you'd like to find out how you can work with me more deeply, you can get more information on that at my website, which is psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. I'm not going to explain everything that I offer. You can just take the time to go there if you feel drawn to see about all my offerings. I do want to let you know of two quick things, though, and the first is that on the same night that we have this Facebook Live, this free Facebook Live, I also have a paid class later in the evening, and it's only $12.99 a month. Okay, it's like, actually right now that's less than what I'm paying for Netflix. And once a month I get on there and do a Facebook Live that's always about some kind of like crazy fringe or paranormal or conspiracy topic. And tonight we're talking about psychotronic weapons, like actual technology that's used, like actual physical technology that's used to psychically attack people. And we're going to be going down that rabbit hole tonight, and that information is on my website. Click on the, or look at the events tab, you'll find it there. You could just sign up and I'll add you and you can join us tonight. The other thing is, if you're really dealing with a lot of psychic attack, psychic protection issues, if this has been going on for a long time, very seldom do I see really quick fixes for really long-term serious issues. It takes some deep work, and that's why I have my 12-month Spiritual Empowerment Academy online, and that's under the events tab too. So enough of that little announcement. Let's dive in. Let's see if we have any other announcements or any other shout outs. Okay, so we're talking about secondary psychic attack. This is actually a term that I coined a couple of years ago, for lack of a better term. And what I mean by that, I'm distinguishing it from primary psychic attack. Primary psychic attack being like a normal psychic attack, where, well, like psychic attack is normal. It's not normal, but like your standard psychic attack. And then secondary psychic attack is a different thing, which I'll get into. But let me take a second and define what a standard psychic attack, a primary psychic attack is, for those of you who are new to that vocabulary, okay? And if you already know what this is, still listen up, because you always learn something new every time. Okay, so primary psychic attack, there's a few different versions of this, but it can be either when a person or a spiritual being is sending you negative energy, black magic, a curse, a hex, etc. So it can be coming from a person who's alive, who's angry with you, or jealous, or competitive, or whatever their stupid reason is for causing harm to another person. They are sending you negative vibes, and it could be intentionally or unintentionally. And intentionally is like they actually set out all their equipment and they do a Wiccan spell, or they're probably not going to do a Wiccan spell, because a tenet of Wicca is harm none. So hopefully they're not going to do black magic, but perhaps it's another kind of another form of witchcraft which doesn't believe in the law of three. There are plenty of those. So let's say they set out all of their magical tools, and they are wanting to do a hex or a curse, or let's say they practice hoodoo or some kind of root work, root magic, Santeria. I mean, there's so many different versions of magic throughout the world, some of which do utilize the right hand and the left hand path, the positive and the negative. And so there are people who will use those methods that they know to do a spell do a hex, do a curse, whatever it's called in their tradition, to initiate harm upon you, which in whatever way that might be, like to cause you to get sick, or cause you to have bad luck, or to cause you to feel terrible, cause your relationship to fail, cause your money to dry up, whatever, right? So whatever their purpose is. So they're purposely doing that to send you negative energy for whatever their silly reason might be. Or if they don't have that kind of knowledge, they might hire someone to do that kind of work. Okay? So either way, there's a person that's doing that's intentionally doing this. The unintentional version of psychic attack from a person is when someone is having very, very strong emotions. They're like extremely jealous, or they have like so much hatred towards you that they are sending these negative emotions. Well, our emotions and our thoughts affect energy. So even somebody saying something terrible, which I'm not even going to say, like if they just say like a terrible thing, I hope blah 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 happens to you, if they just speak those words are powerful even without an actual black magic ritual. Words are powerful and emotions are powerful. So even if they don't say a word to you, to your face, they might speak it alone, in their bedroom or whatever, by their altar, whatever. Or they might just think it and feel it like, oh, I hate that person. I hope such and such happens to them. So a lot of people who are engaging in those kinds of feelings and thoughts are not necessarily aware that they are sending a psychic attack. They are just caught up in how pissed they are at you. And they don't even really have an understanding of how energy works and how they are misusing their energy by sending out all these energy daggers. Those who are sensitive, who are on the receiving end of that, will experience that as a psychic attack. They will feel terrible. They'll feel depressed, overwhelmed. They'll feel self-doubt. Maybe they'll have nightmares. They just feel off. All sorts of different things can happen. So psychic attack from a person can be intentional or unintentional, either way. And then from a spiritual entity, psychic attack could be that you're living in a house that has an evil spirit, and it has decided that it wants to mess with you. And so then it starts to mess with your energy. It starts to mess with your mind. It might mess with some aspects of your life. And then there's more of a global psychic attack kind of thing, like more of a collective psychic attack kind of thing, where it's not just one entity, but maybe the dark forces in general are really blasting a person to throw them off track. And that's very intentional. It's coming directly from the entities. Okay? So, but what I mean by secondary psychic attack, I came up with this term a few years ago because what I was noticing was that there would be instances where another person would be messed with, psychically attacked, messed with, but the target was actually this person over here. So let's say an entity starts to mess with this person over here, gets them all stirred up. So this person spews their emotional vomit, onto this other person, and this person was actually the target. So it's a secondary effect. Okay, so I'm going to go more into detail on this, and I'm going to give a lot of examples so that you understand exactly what it is that I'm talking about. And I think that in time you're going to begin to understand that some of the dramas that have been happening in your life are actually secondary psychic attack rather than normal mundane things. So sometimes you're actually being messed with. Sometimes it's just normal life and people being assholes, okay? But a lot of times, I mean, I know in my own life, a lot of times when I tune in and I try to discern, okay, what is this? Is this just, people being people, or is there some kind of interference here? 9 times out of 10, there's some kind of interference going on. Not every time, but so I want to really get you thinking about some of the things that may be going on in your life right now, things that you've experienced in the past, whether it's with your romantic partner, your life partner, your kids, your coworkers, your boss, like any people that you know, and even strangers. So when I get into the examples, I think this will make more sense. Let me just see if there's any comments real quick. Okay, let me just fix my little device. Sometimes I gotta reset it. Okay. As always, pardon me while I look at my notes here. I made a little definition, and I want to just read off of this because it's very concise. Secondary psychic attack defined, according to me, Maya Zahira. Negative spiritual forces are nudging or influencing others to sabotage you. So let me read that again. Negative spiritual forces, whatever they may be, are nudging or influencing others to sabotage you. Okay? Or to poke at you, or to poke at your triggers, to get you stirred up, to get you discouraged. Okay, all of this is to keep you busy cleaning up the mess that this other person has created, or I can't read my own writing, or to keep you spinning out in your emotional triggers. So you're like so upset about what this thing did, okay? Rather than living in alignment with your purpose. It's literally used as a distraction and also as a means to suck your life force energy. Okay? So also to clarify, every one of us we all have triggers. That's actually part of our current human condition. We all have triggers. We all have old wounds. We all have aspects of ourselves that we haven't fully healed yet. And just existing and being in the world, even with somebody, even if we're sitting in a room with a person who is so well-meaning and light-filled and not being messed with by entities, we still might get our triggers touched. They still might hit our ouchie spots, as I call them sometimes. And a lot of times we may have positive soul contracts with some people, so that it's a positive thing that they've made an agreement, a soul agreement, to activate, to poke us a little bit, activate some of our triggers, activate some of our wounds, in order to help activate and deepen our own healing and growth process. So I'm just explaining this so that you understand that anytime someone pokes at your triggers, it doesn't mean that a demon is causing them to mess with you. It could be that this is an angel in disguise that has a soul contract with you to cause you to work through some of your stuff. And you know, life is complicated, so sometimes it's a little bit of both. Sometimes, like for example, I've had some trolls lately. I've had some trolls lately online. It's not too bad compared to most people, but it's like I can tell that it's negative spiritual interference. I can tell that there's some secondary psychic attack happening. It's like these people are guided to just post lame ass comments that like are just really stupid. But then on another level, I know that there's another aspect where that is for my growth, right? So it's both. So in that instance, it's both and. Okay. All right. So secondary psychic attack can come from someone that you know really well, can come from your partner, can come from your kids. Or it can come from someone you know moderately well, a coworker, your boss, an acquaintance, or a perfect stranger. Like you walk by someone at the airport and they're suddenly guided to say something or do something that's like that exact thing that's going to throw you off for the rest of the day. And oftentimes they don't even know why they said it. Something nudged them to say it. Oh, and before I go into examples, I want to go explain how these dark forces, like how the secondary psychic attack works and how the person is influenced. And as I'm talking, I want to give you plenty of lead time. I want to invite you to think about any examples in your own life. And then if you can share a short story, like at any time, you can pop in, you can start sharing right now. Just know that the really, really long stories, sometimes it's hard for me to see all the way to the end. But if you share a couple of sentences, then that will help other people to understand what they're going through as well. So, how do the dark forces engage in this secondary psychic attack? And again, I don't usually read right off my notes, but this is it's a bit complicated, so I wanted to make this part really concise. So how they influence, what they do is they impart a feeling, a thought, or an urge upon the person. Okay, so they might even speak as a clairvoyant, as a clairaudient. I can sometimes see or hear that there's like literally an entity that will speak into the person's ear. And how the person receives it a lot of times is it will come in as though it is their own thought. So, or they might get an emotional nudge like, I'm so mad at that person, and they don't really know why. There's no real good reason. Okay, so there's a feeling, there's a thought that comes in, there's an urge, there's a nudge of some kind that this negative entity or the dark forces impart onto this secondary person. And sometimes the person is aware that they are sabotaging you. Sometimes they are like, oh, I'm so mad, I just want that person to fail. And so they know, like, I'm gonna mess things up for them. But more times than not, the person is not aware. They don't even know. So here's examples of all of the different people who could be a secondary target, who could be a pawn to primary attack someone else. And here's a hint. Every single person on the planet can be used as a pawn for secondary psychic attack. I really believe that every single one of us, no matter how aware we are, how grounded we are, at some point in time, you may have been nudged. Maybe you were tired. Maybe you just were having an off day or something. And the dark forces take advantage of that. So don't feel like everybody else out there is taking part in this secondary stuff against you, but you never are. Like, this is all of us, okay? But here's a list of the different kinds of people that are easy targets for the dark forces to use as the secondary, like Agent Smith, right? So first of all, a lot of people on the planet are unconscious. Let's face it. Like, gosh, I don't know. I feel like most of society, mainstream society, is pretty asleep. They're numbed out, watching TV, staring at their phone, doing brain-numbing activities rather than mind-enhancing activities like this. Whatever activities they're engaged with are very numbing, and so they're just not even fully there, right? Like, kind of asleep automatons, driving to work, driving home, sitting in front of the boob tube. And I'm not blaming people for this. This is a hard planet to live on, okay? But people who are in that frame of mind where they're not present, super easy for the dark forces to nudge those people because they're not even aware of what's happening, okay? And again, here with this next example, no judgment at all. There's no personal or moral judgment. This just is what it is. If a person is on drugs, abusing any kind of substances, or the person is mentally ill. Especially in my opinion, as a spiritual influencer here, I feel like especially people who have issues with psychosis, right? I'm not talking about just a little bit of depression, but like the more serious mental illnesses, especially, they're and people who are high on something, right? They're very easily nudged. Like, it's just so easy for entities to mess with them. So I feel really sorry for those people who are in those really vulnerable positions already, and then they're being used as a pawn to mess with other people. I've actually experienced that. I'll been on the primary end of receiving that. I'll give that as an example in a little bit. Then there are people who are purposely working with the dark forces, and so they think that demons are their friends. I know it might be hard to believe, but there are literally people out there who call on demons, who call on jinn to do their will. Again, to each their own. I'm not the energy police, whatever someone chooses to do. I personally think it's a dumb idea, but suffice it to say, they are purposely working with dark forces. They think that they have a partnership with them, and so that people like that are more than happy to be a secondary agent as a means of attacking the primary person, right? And then there are those who are more aware than the average mainstream people I was mentioning before. People who are a little more aware, more grounded, spiritual seekers, like those of you watching this, but maybe you're having a weird day, you're having a hard day, you're stressed out, you're not feeling well, you're really tired, you haven't gotten enough sleep, like any number of reasons why you're just not on your game, because we're all human, right? We're all like imperfect. We're not in a super high vibe every single second of every single day. Even those of us who try to be, it's literally impossible. So there are times when even those people could be interfered with, influenced to be an agent of secondary psychic attack. Okay, let me see what else. Now we're going to get into stories, and I see some of you have sent stories. Okay, I have a lot of pages written. Okay, so I see some stories. Let's get into those. Elizabeth, hi there. Elizabeth says, I have been going through a psychic attack involving someone that I thought was a close friend, but her jealousy attracted dark energy, and she is not only sending it to me, but also everyone around me to interfere with my life. So I'm sorry that you're going through that. That sucks so bad. It sounds like you're going through both primary and secondary psychic attacks. So there's someone in your life who is angry with you, and she's sending all sorts of energy daggers your way. And then she's working with a lot of dark energy, and that is, it's like casting off onto a lot of other people that are in both of your lives. And then it sounds like those people are being nudged to do things to throw you off as well. And that part would be considered a secondary psychic attack. So yeah, no fun at all. Hamad says, I agree. Attacks can also induce psychosis. Yeah, so I'm glad you pointed that out. Now, you all know this, but I always repeat this like a broken record. I'm not a medical doctor. This is not any kind of a medical diagnosis or medical information, because I'm not a doctor. So from my perspective as a spiritual healer, as a psychic, as someone who works with psychic protection, my observation has been that as far as mental illness that Hamad is mentioning, that sometimes there can be psychosis to start with, but then sometimes the person is fine, and then entities come in, mess with the person's mind, and that actually creates the psychosis. So it gets really complicated, and hopefully my hope is that those who are in the medical field and in the scientific field who are also open to spirituality, my hope is that at some point there will be some studies done. That's like completely different expertise than mine. I don't work in that field, but it's definitely, I'm glad that you pointed it out. Okay. Nick says, are we all human? Well, yes. We all are experiencing a human incarnation. Now, I'm going to answer your question in a serious manner, though. That knowing what I know about you. So, let's see. What do I want to say? So, no matter if you are a starseed, like if you feel like your spirit came from another planet, came from elsewhere, if you don't really belong here, if you feel like you came from the angelic realm or some other realm, those things all might be true, but you're also in a human body. So fact is, we are all human, and we all end up having our human brain, our human consciousness that has the triggers and all of the human things that we are all experiencing and slogging through. Yes. Okay. So I want to see some more examples, and I'm going to start going through my list of examples. Okay. Actually, I have a question here to help get the sharing going. Have you ever felt like there's some negative force that's guiding people to mess with you, or a person to mess with you? It could be random people, or it could be people that you know, or a person that you know. Have you ever felt like it's not just that there's a person messing with you, but you just get this feeling like there's some negative force that's guiding them to mess with you? Now, I'm going to speak generally here before I get into my examples. For many years, gosh, I don't know, maybe over the last 10 years, I started to notice this weird thing where I'd go through periods, and it wouldn't necessarily be during Mercury retrograde. It would be like other random times where all of a sudden there would be like people kicking up drama, and there would be people who were upset with me for like really weird, ridiculous reasons. And then there would be like a whole bunch of trolls online, and it would be like all this stuff is happening. It would never be like legitimate. I mean, like there's legitimate things that we have to hash out in our relationships, right? It was always like stupid crap that was just this like unnecessary drama. And it would go in, for me, it would go in phases where all of a sudden there was this like wave. And I used to joke that it was like my own personal Mercury retrograde. And then I would eventually I learned that, okay, I just basically need to like hide for a couple of weeks. Like I need to just stay in my house and not post very much on social media and not do very much until this passes, because it would feel like there was this like storm cloud, this like dark cloud that was hovering, and it was like weather. It felt like, I mean, it would eventually go away, but it would be there until it passed, right? And it wasn't until a few years ago, you know, as I've gotten deeper into understanding all of the psychic protection information that I teach, I started to look at this phenomenon that I was noticing in my own life. I think we all have different experiences. We're all unique. But I realized I don't think this is just astrological for me. I think that for me there are waves where for whatever reason I will be under attack. And it happens to be a lot of secondary attack. And by the way, I'm going to jump ahead to something I'm going to mention at the end. And it's that a lot of times when there's a wave of secondary psychic attack happening, where there's all this like weird drama coming from people, what I've noticed with myself and with my friends and my clients is that oftentimes that wave of secondary psychic attack is the precursor to a bigger wave of primary psychic attack. So let's say in your life there's a little bit of weird drama, there's a little bit of secondary psychic attack, and then you let that suck you in, you get really pulled in, you get really triggered, you get thrown off your game even more, you're just like super upset and ungrounded and stressed out because you're so upset about what this person is doing or people or whatever, and then the negative forces that be will send more drama from other people, both people that you know and that you don't know. So it's this big wave of secondary psychic attack. It'll build, and then once you're like in a weakened state and you're not your normal, like conscious, calm person that you're trying to be, then they'll send the second wave, which will a lot of times end up being some kind of paranormal activity or nightmares or being attacked by some kind of negative energy at nighttime, or other sorts of primary psychic attack symptoms. That's actually similar to what I went through that I talk about in my book, Darkness Disguised as Light. It's available on Amazon. How I didn't know what was happening at the time. I didn't know about secondary psychic attack. All I knew was like, geez, all these like drama people are coming out of the woodwork. It's so crazy. Like, what is going on? Because I've cultivated this like really quiet, calm, Zen lifestyle, and I don't have a lot of drama people in my life. So I was like, what is going on here? Well, in hindsight, I looked back and I was like, oh, that was to like really shake me up, and then the big wave, like the bigger wave, the primary wave came after that. So the key is that you want to stay calm, centered, collected. You want to recognize what's going on. You want to go, oh, this is negative spiritual interference. I know what this is. Okay, the dark forces are trying to mess with me, and once you see that, then it takes a lot of that power away. It takes a lot of that negative power away. Okay, hey, Sophia, I didn't expect to see you on a Monday. Cool. All right, I had said I was going to come into examples, and I will, but let me just see who all is on here. Hamad says, very typical, I had those, LOL. Hamad says, it felt like everyone is turning against me, abandoning me, disrespecting me, and being rude for no reason. Yep, so you were having like a collective sort of thing, it sounds like. Yeah? Okay, I'm going to start reading off examples, and as I go, you might have some memories that are triggered of some things that you've been through, okay? Okay, now, I have so many examples. I need to look at my notes because I can't remember what they all are. There's like 15 of them. Okay, so out of the blue, a friend of yours is trying to suck you into unnecessary drama between her and her boyfriend. You are innocently having a phone call with her. You're just like, you think that you're just talking to each other about your day, and she starts talking about her boyfriend, and she asks your opinion, and you give your honest opinion. Well, I think he's like being a jerk or whatever it is that you say. And then you all of a sudden you hear him yelling, and she actually has had you on speakerphone because she was trying to prove to her boyfriend that she was right. And so anyway, you unwittingly get pulled into this triangulation where you thought you were just having a hey, how you doing phone call with your friend, and now there's this weird triangulation that's trying to happen, right? And you're blindsided by that. Here's example number 2. You're just having a normal conversation with a friend, and for some reason he or she is guided to just happen to mention that there's a bunch of people that don't like you. Okay, so that might seem like mundane, But think about it. Like, what guided that person to say that to you? And is it helpful, or is it like that's a subversive thing, right? So if you're giving the person the benefit of the doubt, it's probably, we're going to say it wasn't an intentional sabotage, right? We talked about intentional and unintentional. Perhaps it was more like, maybe they were getting a little tired. Their blood sugar was low. They needed to go eat something. And so they were a little more vulnerable. They got a nudge to, I'm going to say this one thing just without thinking, right? Okay, I'm watching for comments, you guys. I want to hear stories. Example number 3. You're in a yoga class, and you chose to go to the yoga class because you were feeling really depleted. So you're already kind of run down, and you think, a yoga class is where I need to go. That's what I need to do to recharge and to feel better. And you're in the middle of the yoga class, you're in the middle of doing stretches, and for some weird reason, the yoga instructor is guided to single you out in front of the whole class and say some really inappropriate put-downs to you. And she says things that really diminish you in front of all of the other classmates. But afterwards, when you approach her to ask her about it, because you're trying to resolve things, she has no idea why she said it. All she knows is that the energy just felt weird. And so she felt compelled to do this thing, to say this inappropriate thing. Okay? Again, normally, wouldn't you just kind of write that off and be like, oh, that was weird? Okay. But people like me, and maybe people like you too, if you are on the radar of the dark forces, like for whatever reason, if you're on their radar, which I know I am, then like any chance that they have to nudge somebody to sabotage you or to discourage you or to throw you off, they will do it. Okay, so even just little things like that. And think about it. If you have an entire week where there's all these little things chipping away at you, you start off the week in a really high vibe, and there's all these little things throughout the week that chip away at you, and by the end of the week, you're feeling kind of low vibe, a little depressed, maybe stressed, and then the next wave of attack comes. Maybe there was something bigger that was trying to come in from the beginning. And I've noticed oftentimes there's this method of chipping away, wearing you down, so that what's really trying to come in can come in a big wave. Okay, example number 4. Your coworker keeps gossiping about you and trying to throw you under the bus with upper management. Now, this is super common, right? And like I said before, like the world is filled with a lot of humans who are not so nice, as well as those of us who do try to be nice. So there's a lot of unconscious people floating around the world, walking around the world. But sometimes, in some cases, that nasty coworker could actually be acting in that way because of some kind of secondary psychic attack. And here's an example here. It could be that the person already is kind of a nasty coworker and they're not really nice to anybody, but for some reason they are really focused on messing with you more than anybody else. Why is that? Okay. So what happens is the dark forces will often utilize whatever someone else's unresolved inner darkness that's already there. They will utilize that. So let's say there's coworker that has a natural tendency for jealousy, right? And so they'll be a jerk to everybody in the office, but they'll especially focus on you. Why is that? There's usually a reason. It's usually a secondary psychic attack reason. There's something that's nudging them to focus mostly on you more than any of the other people. Okay, number 5. Your kid is in a bad mood and says all the things that they know will hurt you. Now, we all know, if you have kids, kids have plenty of bad days. Kids have cranky days. Like, that's a normal condition of being a kid. But there are times when it is part of a secondary attack. I don't feel like you need to worry that if your kid is having a cranky day, there's a bunch of demons around them. Like, I wouldn't jump to that extreme assumption. It's more subtle than that. There can be times when your kid, no matter what age they are, might be used as a pawn to poke at you, just like your partner might be used in that way, just like your beloved aunt, just like your sister, just like people that you really care about. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily infested with entities. Every situation is different. Like the coworker situation that I'm thinking of, I've worked with a lot of clients who've had these issues, and a lot of those situations, when I look at the coworker is often surrounded by dark energy. Like, they have a lot of darkness. A lot of times when it's our loved ones, it can be just that they don't necessarily have a bunch of entity attachments. They're just having an unconscious moment. So try not to jump to assumptions about exactly what's going on with them. It's all different. So let's read Jennifer's story, and then I'll go into some more of my own examples, or her question, I think it is. Okay, this is a great question. Why aren't our guardian angels or guides deflecting this psychic attack directed at us? Is it because of free will? Oh my God. Jennifer, thank you for this question. And this reminds me, I had actually forgotten. I have been wanting to create a video or an audio or a teaching about free will and about this exact question, actually. And the answer is, realistically, it would be more of like a 10-minute rambling of kind of going over a bunch of ideas that I have come to, because it's been a major existential crisis type of question that I've had for a few years now. So there's not a concise answer to this. But I will say this, that every situation is different. Our angels and our guides are not always allowed to intervene. So, and sometimes they are. So think outside of the spiritual warfare aspects. Think in terms of physical stuff. So there's an example. There's so many stories of people who've been saved from mortal injury, saved from a car accident, pulled from a burning car, or they avoided a car accident. There was literally something that was very clear that there was some kind of intervention. Like, I had one of those where, like, something slammed my brake down. I didn't do it. And because that happened, the car that was speeding by and didn't stop for the stop sign ended up not hitting me when I was a teenager. And so there was definitely some angelic intervention that kept me from getting into a horrible car accident. There's so many stories of those kinds of interventions, but yet there are many more situations where there's not intervention. I mean, all the people who do get into car accidents every day, all the people that do have horrible things happen to them. And then when we look at the spiritual aspect, the same thing is true. Like, in my own life, I have seen periods of time where I was very heavily guarded, very heavily protected for whatever reason. And there were other times where things were allowed to happen. In my own life, I can say, well, because of the work that I'm doing now, a lot of it was like boot camp, advanced placement, earth school classes in spiritual warfare. Like, I was being put through situations so that I would really know, not just know, but that I would like really know. But I don't think that's necessarily the case for everybody. So like I said, rambly answer to that question. It's not an easy answer. There's not a clear answer to that. Part of it does have to do with our free will. Like we do have to ask for help. But even if we ask for help, sometimes it's not given to us because we have some kind of a soul contract to have some sort of experience as a deepening or learning experience. There's a whole variety of reasons. So thank you for reminding me that I need to do that teaching on that. So that's a good question. Okay. Jennifer says, yep, makes sense. Life experience is the alchemy that turns lead into gold. That's true. And also, so yes, a lot of times it's for learning and for growth, but sometimes it's not something that we agreed upon, and there is interference by the dark forces. So I've got a little tickle in my throat. So there's instances where the dark forces will impose upon our free will, and we think that nothing is allowed to impose upon our free will, but have you noticed? There's a lot of times when our free will is imposed upon. So that's a belief that we have, but it's not necessarily true. The forces of good, they follow the laws of the universe. The negative forces will find any loopholes that they can so that they can bend rules or break rules because they don't give a crap. Okay. So, great question and great point. Anybody have any stories that they want to share? Let's see here. Okay, so example number 6. Your partner, who is usually really dependable and super, super supportive, awesome partner, accidentally forgets to pick up your dry cleaning that they agreed to pick up for you. And this is like a really vital thing because you have this like super busy day, crazy full day, and you have a really important job interview the next day, and your partner is supposed to pick up this interview suit for you, and they, for some reason, they get this mind wipe and they completely forget, even though they're usually an awesome, supportive person. Okay, but then there's also the partners that are usually unsupportive, and oh my gosh, that scared me. Busy right now. I think it's Amazon delivery. That scared me. Oh God, I didn't expect it. So it could be a supportive partner or an unsupportive partner. Either way, for some reason they're guided that mind wipe, they completely forget, or they accidentally on purpose forget in order to sabotage you. And then what does that do? It's not just one little thing that bugs you. It creates a whole mess that you then have to clean up. Then you end up not getting the job that you were supposed to get into, and then you end up in a dead-end job. Like, it ends up creating this whole sinking hole for you. Just that one little thing of them forgetting. Okay, and it was the secondary psychic attack. Sophia says, world of duality, forces of good and evil. Exactly. That is, we are living in a dualistic world. Okay, number 7. Your one friend that you've arranged to help you move. On moving day, she shows up beyond exhausted. Mentally exhausted, physically exhausted, spiritually depleted, and is unable to help you at the level that you actually needed. So you were really counting on this person, and for whatever reason, this person was psychically attacked, had a whole bunch of stuff thrown their way, so that by the time they showed up, when they were supposed to be like really grounded and holding space for you and helping in a physical way, they weren't able to do it. And so it might look like they were being primary psychic attacked, but actually they were secondary and you were the target. Okay. Tony says, I've been so upset, scared by psychic attack that people just seemed to react poorly to me. It made it even more difficult and hurt and isolated me even more. It just, hang on a second. It just self-spiraled, but not my usual energy. Kind of like I was the tool that was used to keep it going. Kind of mundane, but outside of normal experience. Yeah, so sometimes the secondary stuff can look like it's totally mundane stuff. But if you really look at it, especially in hindsight, when you look back and you can see the bigger picture, oftentimes you can see that it was actually some kind of outside interference. Yeah, and sometimes that stuff can like really get us down. I hear you, Tony. It does end up having kind of an isolating effect on me as well. Like when I start to get those waves of secondary attack, first thing I want to do is isolate. Like those are the times when I joke that I want to go live out in the middle of nowhere in a cabin and like never see people. And you know, like that's the point. The point is to take us away from what we are supposed to be doing and who we are supposed to do. Okay. I actually don't have a cold. It is, my body is responding to the dry climate here in Arizona. That's all it is. Okay, number 8, postal worker gets distracted and accidentally delivers your check to the wrong address. It gets to you a week late, causing a cascade of money issues for you. Let's say money is super tight and you're in just one of those situations that so many of us have had, those periods where we don't have any wiggle room, right? A lot of crappy stuff's been going on, and so we're really counting on this check, so we're waiting on it so that we can pay a bill or you pay for our rent or whatever. Well, then the check gets delivered to the wrong place and it's a week late. By the time that check shows up, there's a whole mess that has happened. Maybe, you know, maybe you're late on your car payment, or your car gets repossessed, God forbid, or like, you know, whatever, like this whole spiral ends up happening just because that postal worker was nudged to not pay attention in that moment, or was nudged to not get enough sleep that night, or whatever. And Sophia's saying bye. Yeah, she's off to do her own stuff, her own videos. Number 9, the mechanic leaves a shop rag in your engine after working on your engine. You go on a road trip and end up with an engine fire and getting stranded by the side of the highway at night. So these last 2 examples are perfect strangers, people who may not even meet you in person. They don't even know you. They've never seen your face, maybe. But that doesn't matter. Sometimes the dark forces are weaving their web and figuring out any way to mess things up for you. And I keep checking for stories. I want to really encourage you guys to share stories. Okay, example number 10. You're on a road trip. Here's another travel one. You're on a road trip by yourself, unloading your car at an Airbnb that happens to be in an isolated part of town, when out of the blue, a mentally ill homeless person walks by yelling out loud to themselves. This is how you know that they're mentally ill. You can tell something's wrong because they're having an argument with themselves. There's no one else there. They're yelling at somebody, but no one is there. So you know that something is wrong. They notice you. As soon as they see you, they hone in on you. They make a beeline straight toward you, acting like they're, like all of a sudden they go from yelling to like super upset. They're screaming. They're coming right at you, and you run inside and close the door, lock the door as they pound on the door, and you have to call the police to get this person to leave. Now remember, no judgment at all about somebody having a serious mental illness or being homeless. But I've seen this happen so many times where someone who is living with a serious mental illness, you know, I believe in some cases they actually have entities attached to them that will suddenly stir them up and say, attack that person. And I've witnessed that so many times. And so this is a very powerful story here. April says, my story is all of it, just all of it at one point or another, and many at the same time. Yeah, a lot of these can be thrown at you from multiple directions. Example number 11, you're staying, oh, I guess I was on a travel theme here. You're staying at a peaceful Airbnb. The people at the Airbnb customer service staff, there's somebody in the staff, like the 1-800 number, Airbnb, that feels guided to cancel the rest of your reservation and to refund your money. For some reason, they think it would be funny to just mess with people. So when you wake up in the morning, you have this notification that your reservation has been canceled and your money has been refunded, even though your plane ticket isn't until the end of the week. And there's no other openings anywhere for you to stay in that area. So you're scrambling and you call the Airbnb and you're talking to this agent who did this, and they laugh at you. They are gleeful and they think that the situation is funny. Then the landowner who you're renting the Airbnb from texts you saying that if you don't leave right now, they're going to have the police haul you off. Now that was a very specific story, and you know, want to know why? Because I literally went through that. I literally went through that, calling the Airbnb agent, and they were laughing at me like they were literally, you know how you can hear when someone's smiling? They thought that it was funny. They were jacking with my reservation, and like I literally had to flee from that Airbnb. I also was aware when I got there that there were several evil spirits on the land, and I think they were messing with the owner of the Airbnb. That's what I was getting clairvoyantly, that they were messing with her, so that these entities stirred her up, made her all upset, and she starts sending me these like rampage of text messages like, you need to get off my property or I'm going to have you forcibly removed. I'm going to call the police. It was like, holy crap, what the hell is happening? I thought I was like, I had booked a trip. This was a year and a half ago. I had booked a trip to Arizona when I was still living in Kansas. I was going to go stay at this place and work on writing my book for a week. It turned into like me fleeing from this place and driving for hours trying to find a place to stay. Like, instead of me doing the work that I was supposed to be doing. How's that for a crazy secondary psychic attack story? So Nick says, a family member twists my words a lot, causing problems with my mother right before, hold on. Come on. Okay, here we go. Right before important events for her. So I couldn't say much to not upset her, so it didn't ruin her event. But I was trembling for an hour. I thought of what it most likely was after the fact. Yeah, a lot of times we end up getting more clarity after. And Nick says, April, I feel ya. Hamad asks, can't you report them for doing that? I tried filing a complaint. Believe me, I'm good at speaking up. I tried filing a complaint. I didn't get any recourse for that. I mean, yeah, obviously I got a refund, but like it messed up my entire vacation, or writing, spiritual retreat, whatever you want to call it. No, I sent a big long description of what happened, and they would not respond to me at all. They did not care. So whoever was working in the office that day, that was all intentional. Because when I tried to share this story with a few other people, they said, well, I've always had great experiences with Airbnb. And I have no doubt that they have had wonderful experiences. So I'm not knocking Airbnb. I've had other good experiences with them. I literally think it was a secondary psychic attack, that this was, people were intentionally messed with in order to mess with me. Yep. So Nora, hi Nora. I tried joining earlier. Yeah, sometimes technology issues get in the way. Okay, I have a few more examples, I think. Yeah, I have a few more. And then, how long have we been going? We've been going for over an hour. And then I'll go over a few more examples and then we'll wind this down. Okay, example number 12. You've been with your partner for about 10 years and you know each other really well. They've cooked a special meal, especially for you. Afterward, you start to feel really sick. You get hives all over your body, you're having to run to the bathroom, and then come to realize that, oops, after all these years, they accidentally forgot that you have a particular food allergy, and they included that ingredient in your dinner. Now, this is somebody that you have a great relationship with. They probably didn't do it on purpose, right? There was something that nudged them, that like did a little mind wipe, that made them forget or not pay attention to what they were doing. And what did it do? It ended up sabotaging your health. Okay. Speaking of health, that's what this next example is. Number 13. Example with a friend. You've recently had issues with an inner ear infection and vertigo that put you in bed for a few days. It's funny, I can't read my own handwriting. It had been, so the vertigo had been brought on, the ear infection and vertigo had been brought on by a recent road trip up a mountain. So in other words, the change in elevation had really messed you up, caused the ear infection and the vertigo. Your friend knows all about this because you reached out to him for help when you were sick. About a week later, he wants to take you for a ride to show you around town. Before you know it, as you're both chit-chatting and driving along, you're going up a mountain. And you didn't realize you were going to be going up a mountain until you're partway up there and your ears pop. The vertigo comes raging back. Your friend says, when you try to speak to them about it, they say that they don't understand why that made you sick. And then it ends up taking you a whole week to recover from that setback. Okay, now those of you who have really fragile health will understand that story. If you have really strong health, that story might sound really wacky. But I know I have a lot of people who watch my videos who have really fragile health. And so if you do, those little subversive things that people do to throw you off your healing path. Number 14. Okay. Seems like I was going in themes when I was brainstorming these. You've been sick for 5 years, so your finances aren't that great. When you have to move unexpectedly, your friend offers to loan you $1,500 to help you out. At first you say no, but that because you don't want to borrow money from a friend. But then you decide to say yes because you're really in dire straits. So after you receive the loan, you're eager to pay this friend back. So you send him a check for $125 every month. Even though money is super tight, you want to pay this off as soon as possible. But for some reason, every month when you balance your checkbook, you see that they have not deposited any of your checks. Every month, the check doesn't clear. The next month you send a check, it doesn't clear. And you keep asking them, hey, can you deposit those checks when I send them to you instead of holding on to them? until there's one particular month where you're having a really hard time. There's a lot of weird spiritual activity going on in your world. You're dealing with a lot. And so after about this is about 6 months after you've been paying this friend back. So this is like several $100s of checks that have been sent. Money is super tight again because some psychic attack is coming your way, and you've had some more weird stuff happen, so you're trying to deal with it. You're still trying to get out of the hole. You've been sick. Well then, this friend out of the blue decides to cash all of the checks, 6 months worth of checks all at once. And then what that does is it causes a huge mess with your checking account. Normally, if you weren't in dire straits, you'd have plenty of money in your account and you would be taking care of everything. But because things were so tight and like on a shoestring budget, that them holding on to those checks and then depositing 6 of them at once completely wrecks your whole account, and you end up with your rent check bouncing. Okay, so there's these weird sagas like that can happen where it looks like there's someone that's helping, and then this was actually a long-term sabotage that was happening. Okay, next one, 15. You're at home with a migraine. Your upstairs neighbor, who is usually quiet as a mouse, feels guided to start blasting their music. Why is that? Okay, it could be random. It could be that there's something else going on. Why are they guided to do that all of a sudden? Okay, so the last example that I have is more of a general thing. And this is in regards to someone who is a regular fixture in your life. So this could be your mother, your father, your life partner, one of your kids, sister, brother, etc. Best friend. Okay, so this is a person who's a regular fixture in your life. And they are and the dark forces intentionally send into your life a narcissist, a person who's a narcissist, a sociopath, someone who has behavior disorder. So intentionally, the dark forces have arranged, so even maybe before your birth, because maybe it's your mother or your father who's a narcissist. So it's been arranged that there's this person who's a regular fixture in your life who is a constant source of abuse and darkness. Okay? And this also shows up where there are people who are constantly, any partner, any romantic partner that is sent their way, the dark forces end up utilizing those partners to secondary psychic attack the main target. Okay? So some of you watching this may have had a string of relationships, or maybe you've just had one for a long time, where your primary romantic partner or your partners over the years have all been abusive, or they've been narcissists or sociopaths, or they've had addiction issues, etc., etc. And in many cases that was intentional, that those people were on purpose sent your way. This was like a long-term psychic attack, secondary psychic attack scenario. So rather than just like a little mini thing where your really nice husband or wife, who's usually super supportive, accidentally forgets something because they just have a space out moment. That happens all the time. But what I'm talking about is different. I'm talking about where the dark forces intentionally send all of these terrible partners your way, and good partners are kept from you. And this is on purpose to keep you isolated. This is a pattern that I've seen a lot. And I've actually heard a couple of other spiritual teachers talk about this too over the years. So that's more of an ongoing kind of situation rather than like a temporary, right? So do you all have any questions before we wind up? I have a few more thoughts to share. I want to go ahead and read this definition again just to like really wrap things up. Secondary psychic attack defined. Negative spiritual forces are nudging or influencing others to sabotage you for some reason. This is to keep you busy clearing up the mess, or to keep you busy spinning out in your own triggers, rather than living in alignment with your true spiritual purpose. Essentially, the goal is to suck your life force energy and keep you off of your purpose. Okay? So last chance for questions. I'm going to wrap this up by giving a couple of tips, because we went over this like huge phenomenon, so now you understand it. I always like to give at least a few tips, but you've probably noticed that I don't give all of the nuts and bolts of techniques, methods, etc. in the free classes. I give a lot of information about how this sort of thing works. And then in my paid program, Spiritual Empowerment Academy, like that's literally when we dive deep into the nuts and bolts of like how to clear this stuff, how to exactly how to identify it, how to clear it, how to get to the root of it, etc., etc. And in fact, in our class coming up this month in Spiritual Empowerment Academy, our topic that we're going to be covering is how your own triggers can keep you from seeing things clearly. And we're going to be diving into that and looking at what some of our triggers are and getting underneath those, so that once those are healed and cleared, then the dark forces won't be able to use those against us, because the dark forces will always use whatever your weak spots are. Okay, so if you've been having problems with ongoing psychic attack, and you can do a clearing, but you're not getting to the root. So we get to the root in the Spiritual Empowerment Academy. Okay, so closing thoughts. Secondary psychic attack is usually a part of an intentional build-up to a primary psychic attack. Okay, so these tips. Recognize it. Learn to recognize when this is happening. Just recognizing it helps tremendously, because when you don't recognize what's going on, you end up taking things personally. You end up getting sucked into this tornado of drama. But when you recognize it and you go, oh, I see. Well played, dark forces. Like you think that you're going to try to do this. Nope, I see what you're trying to do. So recognize it. Number 2, because you recognize it, that'll make it easier to not get sucked in. So don't get sucked in. Don't allow yourself to get sucked in. And number 3 tip is you've got to do the lifelong work of healing your triggers, so that the dark forces have less to target you with. This is not a quickie McDonald's approach. I mean, you're gonna have to do your work, gonna have to work on your triggers. Okay? So just a quick reminder tonight, well, let me just fix this here. Come on. Okay, so just a quick reminder that later tonight I am having my Psychic Protection Insiders class, which is only $12.99 a month. And we are going into synthetic psychic attacks. So actual technological equipment that can be used to psychically attack people, mess with their energy. And we go down all sorts of weird, wacky rabbit holes in that class. I don't cover that kind of stuff in here. This is more about support and information for psychic attack and general spiritual warfare. And then also, if you're interested in Spiritual Empowerment Academy, go check that out. My website is psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. So as always, I'm sending you lots of love. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me and I'm happy to help. Until next time, bye.